Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Pittsburgh Steelers will play a football game tomorrow. So we are close to the Steelers actually playing an organized game of football. Yes, it's a preseason game, but it is the Hall of Fame game. Some prestige there. Some veterans not playing, though, as you would expect. Mason Rudolph getting the start. Dwayne Haskins, and we have a video that will be coming on Pittsburgh Sports Live today, talking about what he thinks of himself and his competition with Mason Rudolph. We'll get to all of that. We also are going to talk some Pirates. They were in an interesting game and more of an interesting move for the opponent as it happens again. Another manager pulls a starter in the midst of throwing a no-hitter. So what that means overall and if that's ever going to stop in our thoughts there. And also, there's not an NBA team in Pittsburgh, but there's some NBA players from Pittsburgh, and we're semi-connected. So because of that, we're going to talk some NBA moves and the wild NBA free agency season that's been going on, and even some NBA trades and sign-in trades and players running the league still. But now we have LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony finally playing together after all these years. It will happen on the Lakers. I'm Mike Asti, and this is another edition of Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, and all throughout the Now family of networks. I am joined, as always, by Mike Vukovcan, and Mic'd Up is presented by Martin Lawn Services at 412-849-5894. So, Mike, we're going to start Pirates here today. We'll talk Steelers the rest of the week and prior, and it's obviously Steelers season right now with that game about to start. But just quickly, Adrian Hauser pulled from that start for the Milwaukee Brewers, pitching 6 1/4. Not the greatest day in the world for him, but he did have no hits at that point, and believe his spread for that at that time. Yeah. So he did allow a run. He had 5 walks, 4 Ks, ERA teetering around 4 this year. Not necessarily a flamethrower, but no hits at that point, and he was pulled. And then the Pirates, of course, win that game 8-5. What are your thoughts from that game, but even an overall mindset of this has just become an epidemic over years now where these certain pitchers are on pitch counts. Doesn't matter if they're throwing a no-hitter, they do get pulled if that's normally when they would leave games. And this game in particular was a game the Brewers lost despite having a starter pitching a no-hitter through 6, which would be a quality start. It ends up costing the Brewers the game. So would they have won if he stayed in there pitching and with how he was doing? And just thoughts overall on this happening again.
Well, I think it's a case-by-case basis with this no-hitter. I agree with you. In some situations, I think it's ridiculous. But in this particular case, I didn't have any problem with counsel pulling him just for the fact that, if you saw the game, he had 5 walks in the game.
Right.
He was in the 7th inning. He was over 100 pitches. He was at 104. He wasn't going to finish the game. It wasn't as though he pulled him in the 8th inning.
Yeah.
He maybe could have thrown 15, 20 more pitches and gotten through it. He wasn't in no circumstances was he going to finish that game with the amount of pitches he had thrown and where he was at in the game. So I didn't have a problem with it. The Brewers are a playoff team. This is a guy that's going to be in their rotation.
Right.
They have a healthy lead over St. Louis in the Reds. So to me, it was, I know it's a topic and it's a trend as as we've touched on a few times already this year, but it did turn the game around. There's no question about it. When he left, the Pirates had no hits, no runs, and then they bring in Norris, and right after that, the Pirates, thanks to Hoy Park, and they score 5 runs in the inning. And I want to touch upon anyone that thinks the Pirates aren't trying as far as the effort.
5 runs
this is one of the more satisfying. This is one of, I don't know. That's a weird word to use, but it was an impressive win for the Pirates. For as impressive as the Pirates can be, the fact
right.
They're in a place that they get their ass kicked every time they're in.
Especially Milwaukee. Milwaukee, right.
Yeah, in Milwaukee, they get spanked every time they're there. They were down 4-0 against a first-place team. They were getting no hit. There's no – you could just pack it in. But they didn't. They came back in the 7th inning.
Yeah.
They scored. Polanco made a heck of a catch in right field. He had one of his better games of the year. and they're giving effort. There's no question about that. They're giving effort, and I think it's going to be an interesting. And despite where they are in the standings, I do still think these last couple months of the season are going to be interesting for the Pirates as far as individual development goes with certain players heading into 2022.
I definitely think it'll be interesting, to say the least. Granted, they're not going to have the headlines because of the Steelers and even when Penguin season gets going. However, the Pirates are absolutely trying. They're absolutely putting that effort in there. So anyone can say that the ownership is not going to eventually try and eventually won't give Reynolds the money, etc. True or not, that doesn't mean the players are not trying. So that is something to be clear, that even the most negative Pirate supporter or Pirate media member should realize the actual players on this team, they're not responsible for 20 years. They're not responsible for the ownership. They are trying, certainly the young players on this club. And that's evident now. So what I will ask you here, does that mean that Derek Shelton maybe has more rope than some would have thought? Because yes, he was brought in knowing the team wasn't going to win right away, but many thought he kind of would be a bridge, a Jim Russell type of manager to when the team eventually would win. He got a lot of criticism earlier in the year with some moves. His personality is not exactly fiery or what people would want. And yes, this team's several years away from being a contender in the midst of a rebuild. We talked fully on that actually on our post-trade deadline show, Matt Geica and I here, that you can find on this channel on PSL. But it now appears that because these players are playing so hard for Derek Shelton, that wins and losses aside, if they would play this hard for him again next year, maybe he would be the guy that could be there for 4 or 5 years despite losing and be there when they win. Would they give him that type of leash if this team is really playing hard for him? Because he's certainly not lost this clubhouse, even though this team is in no way good overall.
I don't think I think there's 0% chance that Shelton's job's in danger.
No, I don't mean get fired this year, but I mean be there longer.
I don't know. I think that's going to depend on. I think that will depend on development over the next, maybe into next year. I don't think next year they're going to internally. I don't think they're going to expect to be as bad as they were this year. And if they are, then maybe that's a reflection on Shelton.
Maybe.
I think as we go on, every month, the expectations are going to go up for him this year, as we've touched upon many times.
Yeah.
They're playing for individual development this year. There's no,
which they did. They did that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no win total that they needed to get in order to, make this guy get a little uncomfortable in the managerial seat. He's going to be there. However, as you go on, the expectations are going to be there, because by 2022 mid-season next year, some of the guys that we're talking about as their top 10 prospects, they're going to be in the system, or not in the system. They're going to be in the big leagues.
Right.
And some of these guys like Park and who knows, Castro and Hay, these guys are going to be playing for something. And Sherrington and Nutting and Williams are going to be no doubt evaluating what's going on with Derek Shelton and trying to figure out whether he's the guy or not. I'm sure they're doing that now, but they're not doing it, I doubt, very seriously, because he doesn't have enough around him to be able to be fairly judged.
Yeah, no. Tony La Russa, whoever, from Casey Stengel, Joe Torre, they wouldn't be winning with this club, no matter who was out there. So he's not going to be fired this year for these wins and these losses that are not there. But maybe it's a feather in his cap, and they are, because they are playing hard for him. We'll see. The evaluation will come next year, that even if they're playing really, really hard for him, is evident now, they will need to turn that into a little bit of a step in terms of the wins direction, I'm sure, and continuing that development. But
I'll tell you one thing I do want to see, Mike, over the next couple of months. I think Shelton, one thing I think a lot of people are going to be curious, and I'm not sure if he's going to have the total say on this, or does he get input from other people. But these last couple of months, I think they need to. I think Paul Zeiss wrote a column on this yesterday in the Post-Gazette. I think they need to start seeing getting some of these guys up here from either Indianapolis or some of the guys that are on the bench here. And I've seen enough of Kevin Newman. I've seen enough of Polanco. I don't want to see those guys anymore. I want to see Park starting 5 out of 7 games during the week. I want to see Castro. I want to find out whether or not
that should happen. August and September should be doing.
Yes, I want to find out whether or not Cole Tucker is a bust as a first-round pick, or is he a guy that maybe could replace Newman next season. I want to see some pictures up here. Like these older guys, it's done. They've had their time. They had their first X amount of months during the season. It's time to move on for these guys. We need to see guys that are bordering AAA major leagues. They need to find out, use these last couple months as an evaluation period to maybe see what they have.
Yeah, and at the very least, Cole Tucker needs to get a shot because, again, not that anyone's sold on him, but if you're not going to give him a shot or a significant shot, meaning 4 starts a week, probably at minimum at one point in September, then you might as well just dump him now. There's no point. So you got to see Newman clearly hasn't stabilized himself. That's an open position. You got to see if he can do it. And, of course, there's players in the farm that you're building up. You're better than where you were in a previous rebuild, but maybe you can see some here in the big club because, again, that's the beauty of if wins and losses really don't matter right now, then what's it going to hurt? You might as well see. You might as well do the wait and see. You might as well have that evaluation occur. So that absolutely is something that should be going on right now. I'd expect that to be going on right now. But they had a little interesting game last night. Alan Saunders said this a week or so ago, and it's really, really true. The Pittsburgh Pirates play more interesting games and entertaining games than any really bad team I've ever seen. This is not a good team, but there are individual players that are good. They play entertaining games and interesting games. And if you didn't know wins and losses and you were in a coma and you didn't know anything about baseball and you turned the Pirates on for 2 weeks, people would probably think this is an interesting. I could watch this team, and then they look at the record and say, "Well, why am I watching?" But
that's why people watch, man.
And, it's interesting. Yeah, they do. They got to get more down to the ballpark for that, But they do watch. Absolutely, they play interesting games. We'll see what happens attendance-wise, etc. Whenever they're good, but of course that's years away. We will transition though to a team that needs to be good more than just years from now. They have an expectation of being good every year. And last year in the playoffs, but having that dud against the Browns right away. And Ben Roethlisberger back this year. So hopefully for the Steelers' sake, that will help them this year. But what will that mean for next year? And Art Rooney told some of us in media just yesterday that he potentially is not closing the door on Ben Roethlisberger returning after next season, that door is open. Contractually, he's not there right now with a contract, but that could easily occur, that Ben could return after next season. Wouldn't shock him. What are your thoughts there, and even overlying into how they're handling the quarterback situation? Because Mike Tomlin made it clear he's not judging the quarterbacks of Rudolph and Haskins on 2022, which is right. He should just focus on this year right now, but that's clearly got to be important too. Mason's getting the start in the first preseason game, which normally sends a message that he's the backup or is that guy behind the starter, but Haskins had played so well in camp, it appears maybe he has that edge. There's rumors that even Mason could be traded. Who knows if any of this is going to happen? Mason's the only guy contractually there after next season. He's been the incumbent, and Haskins says he's going to turn it into a competition if it's not already been one, but I'd imagine it is one. Is there a possibility that this is all a moot point and Ben actually is back on this team as the starter after 2021? And what would have to occur for him to be back?
Well, I think anytime Rooney, Tomlin, Colbert, they say anything about Roethlisberger, it becomes headlines.
All right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's, and if you look at it, nothing he said is really that earth-shattering. If you think about it.
When he says it, yes, it is.
Yeah, if Ben Roethlisberger plays well this year and doesn't look like he's 40 years old, why wouldn't he come back next year? Tom Brady's going on to, he's going to be 44. Is he 44 or 43, whatever?
Yeah, Drew Brees played to 42.
Yeah, it's all going to be predicated on how Ben plays this year. If he plays well this year and looks like the Ben of a few years ago, considering the weapons that are around him, they'd be stupid not to bring him back.
Yeah, I agree. But the only pushback I can give is, if that would occur, even if, aside from a Super Bowl, which I really don't think.
There's one caveat I will say.
You're
probably going to touch upon it right now. Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is the only debate I could see, and certain media members will say this, is if Ben has a great year next year and they go ahead and win a round, but then lose in the second round or something like that, he has a good enough year that maybe he could do it again. There are going to be some that'll say, eventually you got to cut the cord, and Haskins needs a new contract. He may want to leave and be a starter somewhere else, get a shot somewhere else. Rudolph would still be there, but no one's really loving him. So you may find yourself, by bringing Ben back for one more year, that you're then hurting the future of the franchise, especially if Haskins would be having to leave.
That's a point, but for the NFL, I think it's a what can you do for me now business.
Sure, yeah.
And if Roethlisberger is shown, and he has a year this year that he's putting up the numbers, there's no reason not to bring him back. The only reason that I could potentially see that could become a problem, and it's something else that Art Rooney touched upon yesterday, is salary cap.
Sure.
If TJ Watt gets his $30 million contract or whatever money he's going to come to,
right?
Ben Roethlisberger could come back next year, but Ben Roethlisberger isn't going to come back cheap.
Yeah.
He's not. He gave him helped him out this year.
He may need to help him out again to come back too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Art Rooney his second comment yesterday was about, I got to sign TJ Watt. That's the number one priority of signing TJ Watt, clearly even above Ben. So
does he have the stomach to take another lower salary to do that, to help the Steelers out? Because Watt is going to become the Ben in terms of the person that's going to eat away at their salary cap over the net. Ben's done that for the last 10 plus years. Now it's going to be Watt's turn to do that, and can the Steelers afford that?
Yeah, and it also will be interesting for the future of the Steelers. Obviously, if Haskins works out, and again, he's looked really, really good, but we have yet to see him in a game. So people anointing him for Canton, going to put him down there in Canton, Ohio, where I'm going to be this weekend. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Mason, I do feel, has a ceiling, but at least has been good enough as a backup. But neither one do we know right now is the future of this franchise. We got to see what Haskins does when out there, even though he's looked good. But he's come at low risk, high reward at a low salary figure. Mason, even if he's there and somehow looks better, it's not like he's breaking the bank by any means. But that's going to be TJ Watt for sure. You're correct there. But it will be interesting how the future of the Steelers franchise works even after Ben. When TJ Watt has that big contract, he's getting paid the most, because normally, Mike, after a few years of having the rookie deal, normally NFL franchises have the quarterback position, have the most money and have the biggest salary. Certainly once they're established and get going 3-4 years into that rookie deal potentially. If Haskins plays 1 or 2 or 3 years like his talent shows maybe he could, or whoever's there, eventually 5-6 years down the line, they're still into the TJ contract. A quarterback who's playing really well, taking them into the playoffs, may want more money. That's just what the quarterback position pays, even if they're not worth it. So that is a different way they would have to handle the cap. And I don't know if they'd ever be able to have a situation where they would have an elite quarterback with TJ, because that would be too much financially together. Fortunately, this is the end of Ben's career. But if this was 5 years ago and you had TJ, I don't know how that would work financially, which would be the issue next year that we're bringing up, of course.
Yeah, the good thing for the Steelers is I believe next year I saw a number. I'm not looking into salary cap numbers for next year already, but I did see that the Steelers have a ton of available at this point. They have a ton of available. If it's accurate, they have a ton of available cap space for 2022. So
yeah, they have more than they would have had coming into this year. And of course, fans don't want to hear this, but Juju will be off the books. Yeah. So there will be some players that'll be off the books, like it or not. Again, mic'd up here, Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Hit that subscribe button. And as we round things out, Mike, we touched on Steelers, we touched on Pirates. Those are Pittsburgh teams. It's not a Pittsburgh team in the NBA, but we did have Cam Johnson representing the WPL in the NBA Finals. First time since '74 that happened. We do have TJ McConnell signing a big contract with the Indiana Pacers. We talked Justin Champagnie just yesterday on his prospects of his NBA career, even Miles McBride regionally getting drafted by the Knicks. But none of that's the topic of conversation right now. This is just interesting to me, and honestly, I will admit this. I'm a Carmelo Anthony fan. Always loved the guy, even going back to Syracuse, winning that national title. also interesting to connect because I'd imagine they might have texted each other. The Boeheim boys or whatever they're called, the TBT,
Boeheim
they
Army.
won a title just yesterday. Jim Boeheim really thrilled. Of course, the only national title that Jim Boeheim won was thanks to Carmelo Anthony for the best, arguably, single season by a college basketball player ever, or certainly tournament run. He now will play with LeBron James for the first time in their career. They literally became friends as teenagers sitting on a stoop before a high school game. Obviously, LeBron became a top 5 all-time player, all the finals, all the titles, etc., doing everything for the league and being the Michael Jordan of this era. Carmelo, top 10 leading scorer all time. He got to that last year. No finals appearance, but he's never had the horses that, say, LeBron has had. They will now. There's talent there now. Just what are your thoughts? They're finally going to play together. I wanted this to happen. I was nervous Carmelo Anthony was going to be lured by the Knicks, who apparently made a really significant push, which would have been crazy here. He was an indentured servant for them for enough years. But what are your thoughts? Are you excited about this? Does this maybe turn you more into the NBA by seeing these two finally play together, how this is going to work? They played together, of course, in All-Star games and Team USA. And Melo's become more of a three-point shooter the last few years than ever before. So it seems like he finally fits with LeBron.
Yeah, I'm a Carmelo fan. I'm just not I'm turned off by I don't have a stomach for Lebron. Don't really care for him that much. Right. But I think it's an interesting story. Obviously it's got huge news out in LA. My only question to you is, as an NBA guy, how I'm just thinking there's only one basketball.
Right. There's only one out there.
There's already whispers about how Westbrook and James are going to get on or get along on the court, not personally, but as far as everyone knows, Westbrook, he's he gets the ball, he'll shoot. He has a range from anywhere within the court.
Yeah, that's true.
I just don't know how all those guys, and then we're forgetting about, probably the most talented guy of the group on the floor is Anthony Davis.
Yeah, if he's healthy, absolutely. They could easily drive the offense through him.
I just don't know how those guys are going to get along. Can the ego stay in check for the year and not worry about the point totals and shots for it to work? If it is, great job for Frank Vogel to be able to get those guys to buy in. But I think that's going to be the biggest issue. Talent isn't. Obviously, they're a little, not just a little, they're a lot older.
They're a little older, yes.
Yeah, they're a little older.
Melo's the only player they could have brought in older than LeBron, so he's a few months older than LeBron.
Yeah, I just does that have a chance to work out shot-wise?
Well, I mean, honestly, again, I am admittedly rooting for Melo. I don't cover the Lakers, so I can say that I'm rooting for Melo right now. I am kind of a little sick of LeBron in the finals every year, but I got to root for Melo. But you bring up the point, and I will admit, I've said this actually when they brought in Russell Westbrook, when they made that trade for Russell Westbrook, that I didn't like the fit. As a basketball guy, Russell Westbrook is not the best decision maker in the world. He's an incredible athlete, triple-double machine, of course. He also likes the stats a little bit. If you look down there, big men, I wouldn't imagine love playing with him. Dwight Howard, who was there and was helped them win a title a couple years ago, he's returning for a third stint with LA. He gets paid now off of rebounding and being a big man. Russell's going to take some of those boards for his next contract because Russell Westbrook flies down there. Steven Adams would joke about this, the Pitt product, and would say, well, he's coming, so I guess I'm missing this rebound. He wants the board because he wants triple doubles. So we'll see if he still wants that. But more importantly, why I'm concerned about the fit, LeBron James likes players that make right decisions. That's actually been a criticism of LeBron over his career, is he makes the right basketball player play all the time. Some people have actually said, you're such a beast, don't make the right play, take it yourself. But he would have been honestly better off for me playing with Lonzo Ball again, who's become a better player, but now more mature, or even Mike Conley, or obviously Chris Paul. That didn't work out, but that would have been a natural fit if they would have actually got the Banana Boot crew together. But Russell Westbrook, he takes the ball up court, he looks around, he'll see Melo open in the corner. He'll see Melo there. He'll see LeBron always open. He'll see Anthony Davis with one defender or two and just a beast who can take him over. And he'll say, nope, I can do it myself. Go right through the lane and then get swarmed by three defenders. Maybe he'll make it. Maybe he won't. But the first time he does that, LeBron James is going to have a little sidebar conversation because that'll really annoy him. So I think the only way this works, and it'll be interesting how they do this, and I've always felt LeBron James is more of a player that should be compared historically to Magic Johnson than Jordan with how they play stylistically. I would make LeBron the point. If it was up to me and I didn't have to worry about egos or money, LeBron should be the point guard and decide who gets it, when they get it, what's going on. They've done that in Olympic play, and that ignited Melo. If you wanted to work with everyone, that's what should happen. If it's Russ, that could be a problem. I think the benefit for them is there's no other big three. There's big twos, but no other big three in the West. They should come out of the West. They could have a problem with the Nets if they're all healthy. But this actually would also provide a benefit to LeBron and AD that was hurt all last year. If they need to sit out for a game or two, maybe Russ and Melo can win him a game on a Tuesday night while LeBron takes a break. Maybe that could happen. He could get more days off. But it'll be lit for what the kids say. I'm going to stay up at night and get a little amount of sleep next season, and I do hope Melo gets at least into a finals.
Yeah, there's a reason why Russ has played on 4 teams in the last 5 years.
All right.
He's had no playoff success
since KD left him.
Yeah, he's had no playoff success during that time, and it's not as though he's been on awful teams. There's something, as you mentioned, he's a great talent, but there's something there that
I don't think
into winning.
Yeah, I don't think you can win a title with Russ as your best player. Fortunately, LeBron and AD are better than him, and he's not the best player. So we'll see. Decision-making wise is going to be a concern, though. But they might be able to get through the West at minimum just because it is semi-open, more open than it was in past years. Some teams that were there are kind of gone as being contenders, like, say, Portland. So we will see. I am rooting for Melo, and I also love the way this was announced by Melo, that you literally just saw a graphic with his nickname, and then the L got flickered into a Laker. So he should have been there years ago. He almost was there years ago. Honestly, for inside hoops, he should have been on the Heat Big Three. He was supposed to be on the Heat Big Three they talked about in the 08 Olympics. He was the guy instead of Bosch, but he wanted the money and took that longer deal with the Nuggets, so he wasn't a free agent at the time. He's always went after the money over the ring, so now he's prioritizing the ring. So we'll see. LeBron has got every one of his friends some appearance in the finals at minimum, if not a ring. So we'll see if he can get this done for supposedly his best friend in Melo. That'll do it for this edition of the show. Keep it here.
Have a safe trip to Akron, to Canton.
Canton, thank you. I'm going to be going to Canton tomorrow to cover the Hall of Fame game and then induction ceremony for us as Steelers now. So not too far, but I will enjoy that trip tomorrow. For Mike Vukovcan, I'm Mike Asti. For all of us at PSL, PSN, and beyond,